Hey kids, it's the Best of Them Flyer here, hope you're well. You find me out and about in Berkshire today, glorious summer's day here in Blighty. It's about 22, 23 degrees, nice and dry, not too hot, not too cold, and a great day to go testing other motorcycles. And the eagle-eyed ones amongst you may have noticed that I'm not on my one of my bikes. I'm actually on a borrowed S1000XR. This is BMW's latest hot ship. It's an interesting machine. It's kind of a hybrid. It's badged as a kind of sports tourer, and I guess really it's their answer to the Ducati Multistrada. And I say that because it's kind of a love child between a GS and an S1000RR. It's got the riding position of a GS, it's got some of the looks elements of a GS, but it's got the engine out of the S1000RR sports bike, the big 4-cylinder, I think 998cc machine. It's slightly tuned differently on this machine so that the low down torque I think is slightly lower down, but it's still 165 brake horsepower, so a mighty powerful machine. So it's going to be really interesting to see how she goes today. So I'm just going to ride around on various roads, a few twisters, a few faster roads, and just see how the thing compares to the GS, which I'm obviously very familiar with. Now the first thing that strikes me as I ride this bike is the clutch. It's fitted with BMW's excellent quick shifter. I think they call it Gear Assist Pro, which shifts for you both up and down as long as you've got some revs on the machine, and that's really nice. However, a bit like on my Triumph Street Trip, it doesn't work so well from first to second gear because of the big throw through neutral. However, that said, so occasionally you do need to use the clutch lever. Now the clutch lever on this, it looks like it's cable actuated. It's not hydraulic like on the GS, so first of all it's much heavier than the GS. The other thing is, oddly enough, for a bike of this class and capacity, doesn't have any adjustment, and it's the clutch has a very wide reach, so I'm finding it quite a struggle to grab the clutch. I've got not hideously small hands, but not the biggest in the world, I guess. So that's the first thing that strikes me different from the GS. It's non-adjustable and it's a much stiffer clutch, but of course with the quick shifter you don't have to use it so much, so maybe that's not an issue. We're coming up to a bit of dual carriageway, so I can actually give the bike a bit of a try here. Yeah, this is an amazing machine as far as speed is concerned. I was up to naughty speeds in no time at all there, so I've eased back off again. But hopefully you heard that quick shifter. It works really nicely, it's nice and smooth, and the great thing about it is it works up and down, which is wild. The other thing that strikes you with the bike is the engine note. Absolutely lovely. It's a big 4-cylinder lump, as I say, and it's just got a completely different character to the boxer engine that I'm used to in the GS. It sounds lovely at high revs. And cruising along here, what I'm doing 76 at the moment on a dual carriageway, normal sort of cruising speeds that you might do if you're out touring. And I have to say, there's a little bit of vibration through the bars. It's not actually as comfortable as the GS as far as that's concerned. So if you want to buy one of these as a cruiser, maybe not as comfy. The seat is very comfortable, by the way. In fact, I'd say that's more comfortable than the GS. In terms of the height of the seat, that's perfectly manageable. I'm not sure, I assume this is just the standard seat height on this one. And it's very easy to manage. The bike feels quite a lot lighter than the GS, even though the big GS holds the weight low down because the boxer engine has a low centre of gravity, and this one isn't low down because obviously the cylinders are all stood up. It does feel lighter when you're manoeuvring it around at standstill, so that's a definite plus point for the XR. Has a gear position indicator, which is a nice add, and I also like to say that the instrument cluster is an awful lot clearer than on the GS, so that's good news, they've learnt there. The other great thing about the instrument system on here, of course, is you may have noticed they've got the mount for the Navigator 5 just here, and the function wheel as well. So although it doesn't come as standard with that, you've got to buy that as an extra in typical BMW fashion, and it's around 600 quid, so very expensive for a sat-nav. I would absolutely go for that. That for me is one of the plus points of this bike, the fact that you can have the Navigator 5. I so love that device. I've talked about it before. It has a lot of functionality that it adds to the bike, and is definitely an option I'd go for. So at slow speed, no issue at all. It's also a little bit more manic generally than the GS. It's not as much of a relaxed ride, but then you'd expect that because of the engine configuration. But this slow stuff, working through traffic, no problem at all. Compared to the Multistrada that I rode a few months back, it's actually much nicer to ride. It feels a lot lighter. The riding position is much nicer. You're not sitting on over the top of the handlebars as you do on the Ducati. In fact, the riding position, as far as I can tell, is identical to the GS. Feels very familiar. All the switch gear is the same as the GS. The riding modes and so on are all activated in the same way. So it's, if you're coming from one of those type of bikes, it'll all be very familiar to you. But these sort of revs are where you do need to use the clutch and not the quick shifter, and this is where the heaviness of it does come in. It really is quite a heavy clutch, which is a surprise. Of course, the other big difference between this and the GS is this is chain drive, not shaft drive. Now, practically, the real difference that means is you don't have to look after the chain and keep oiling it. In terms of riding it, I can't tell the difference. Certainly feels lovely and light at standstill. No issue with holding the bike upright, even though I'm slightly on tippy toe. But it doesn't feel sort of dangerously unstable or way too high. Whereas I did feel a bit like that on the Multistrada. Right, I've proven it works absolutely fine in traffic. It's time to get out of here. Find some more fun roads. And elude some distractions. Ooh, hello. Shifter works really nicely. Actually, you only have to tap the lever and she changes. And I did a first to second change then, it worked absolutely fine. So in terms of riding modes, it's got 4 modes on this machine. It's got a rain, road, dynamic and dynamic pro. I've got it set in dynamic at the moment. I see the dynamic pro is just the super hooligan mode, whereas I'm just in normal hooligan mode at the moment. Screen weather protection not quite as good as on the GS, so I'm feeling a bit of buffet on the old head. It is adjustable, and I'm sure there'll be aftermarket ones along soon. Problem with the screen is, though, to adjust it you don't have a knob that you can adjust as you do on the GS. You have to physically do it with both hands, so you can really only do it when you're stopped, which is a black mark for the bike, which is unfortunate. I'm sure it wouldn't have taken much to add that adjuster. Gives a nice little pop when you change down on the quick shifter. Here we go. Yeah, no doubt she's a quick machine. Not super quick like the Panigale quick, but it's certainly up there with the Multistrada, I think. Handling wise, the bike is beautifully balanced. They've just got the weight distribution right. It feels like it's eminently flickable. It really does handle lovely. Tips into corners beautifully. Just doesn't feel weighty at all. I think she weighs 230 kilograms, which is a little bit lighter than the GS. It certainly feels a lot lighter. The GS doesn't feel heavy, even though it is. Right, let's pull in over here, show you around the bike. Okay, so here she is. And in fact, the first thing that about the externals of the bike is that I don't actually much like the looks of it, I have to say. But when you see it in the flesh compared to pictures that you maybe see in magazines and reviews, it is actually much nicer in the flesh than the pictures you see. And I think this one in red actually is better. However, the sort of Achilles heel of the bike, if you like, is this general look. 'Cause this front end, to me, it just looks like, you know, Donald Duck or something. That is not an attractive front end, I don't think. If Ducati can make bikes that look nice like the Multistrada, why can't BMW? They've got one or two nice looking bikes. The R9T is lovely, and I've kind of grown to like the GS, although I wouldn't say I love it. But this thing really is been battered about by the fugly stick. Look at it, and I think that might be the thing that would put me off buying one of these. It's just I couldn't get excited about that parked in the garage. What I would say, the build quality is lovely. Really nicely put together. Some oddities though. I mean, look at the back here where the panniers go. This scaffolding lark. Why do they do that? Is that to make it look more adventure-y? With the GS, there are just a couple of lugs. It's much neater when the panniers are off. You can't see there's any panniers to go at all, to fit at all. Whereas here, you've got this this scaffolding arrangement. Very odd. I think I'd have to take that off if I wasn't going to be using panniers. This back end. Okay, I'm sure it can be tidied up. I'm sure there'll be aftermarket tail tidies along very soon, but what is this all about? That's going to have to be taken straight off. That is just horrible. I can only assume there's some regulation that says you have to have something like that on there now, that big mudguard at the back. But goodness me, that is ugly. The exhaust pipe for a modern bike, not too bad. Sounds lovely. Doesn't look too bad. Maybe that could stay. What else to say about the looks of it? The fit and finish is beautiful. No doubt about that. The brakes, I suspect they're the same brakes as on the GS. They're very, very efficient. They feel really good. Stop you no trouble. Of course, it's got ABS traction control, so it's got all the braking stuff you need. Massive radiator at the front there. And once again, back to this really ugly front end. Sorry about that, BMW. You've got to work on that. And then the screen, adjust-wise, is just a manual adjust down and up. So that's what she looks like at the front with it fully up, which is where I've been riding it. And then fully down. I'll give it a little try like that. It looks better with it down, but how effective that is from a wind point of view, I don't know. So there we have it. Not unattractive from the back and in red, but the front, as I say, not a fan. But undeniably an excellent motorcycle. If you can live with the looks, it's really nice. It's got no lack of poke. That 4-cylinder engine is nice and smooth. A little bit less torquey low down. I like low down torque actually. On the GS, I think the torque is 125 Newton meters at something like 4,000 RPM. This I think is 122, so not a lot different, but it's much higher up. I think it's at 7,000 or 8,000 RPM. And that does, you can notice that a little bit. I guess you've got to factor in that the GS is a 1200 and this is a 999 or 998cc. And there's the chain, of course, which will take a bit of looking after, but you know, not a big deal. Let's face it, we've all looked after chains on motorcycles. Okay, let's go and ride her some more. Noticeably easier to manhandle on the gravel than the big GS, which is a major plus point. Yeah, she sounds like a sporty bike when you start her. I like it. And the instrument cluster is nice and clear. Got to be a little bit careful because I don't know this road. It's 40, so we'll just brake a little bit. Make sure we stay within the speed limits. Okay, that's about 40, I think. Yeah, the brakes are great. That screen, definitely more wind blast with it in the low position, but it's not turbulent blast. It's nice and constant, so it's not bad at all. I'm used to riding naked bikes, and that's absolutely fine. No problem with that. Yeah. Man, it's a weapon at high revs. Sports bikes fans will love this. Sublime handling. Amazing brakes. As an all-rounder, this is a great bike. You can certainly have a blast on this machine, as well as just sit back, relax and have a comfortable tour. Just get yourself some thick gloves so the little vibes that you get damped out. They're not too bad, by the way, the vibes. You'd have to ride one to see if you can live with it or not. Generally speaking, the engine is creamy smooth, as you'd expect. So I've got the machine in Dynamic Pro for the last 10 minutes or so, and I have to say that has made quite a big difference to the handling. It's much more of a beast in Dynamic Pro. The different engine modes making much bigger difference than they do on the GS, which is a good thing. Okay, one last little blast then. Go on then, just because you can. Yeah, in Dynamic Pro mode, she really takes off. Quite nothing that comes out. Light and flickable for filtering of this type. Tell you what, if you're just going to have one bike in your bike shed, then this would be the one to have. It's an all-rounder, absolutely brilliant. Handling is sublime through these corners. It sounds ridiculous, but it handles better than my Street Triple, I'm sure. Okay, so in summary then, what do I make of the new BMW S1000XR? Well, like the other reviewers that I've read about, it's a fantastic bike. You can't deny that. There's a lot to love about the bike. The electronics package is superb. The engine is super quick, nice and creamy. The engine modes make a good difference. It sounds lovely. The brakes are brilliant. Weather protection, not great, but frankly there's not turbulent air coming off, so that's not a problem at all. As an all-rounder, a top choice, and definitely on my list as a potential replacement for the GS when I get fed up with that. I'm not quite there yet with the GS, still like that as a relaxing touring bike, but this could certainly do that as well. It's very, very comfortable to ride, and if you want to ride like a hooligan, you can do that too. Absolutely lovely. So yeah, like everybody else, I love the bike. It's just a matter of whether I can get used to the Daffy Duck looks, which really I don't like, but in the red, not so bad. So maybe I'll keep looking at it over the months, and maybe I can grow to love it, a bit like a ginger child. And in the end, maybe it's the one to go for. But at the moment, top of the list, prefer it to the Multistrada because the controls are better. I love the fact that you can get the Nav 5 for it, and actually I think it does feel a bit quicker as well. I don't know about the new Multistrada, I haven't ridden the latest generation, but it certainly feels much lighter than the one I rode, and that for me is great, and it's not as tall either. So there we are, that's my summary of the S1000XR. Hope it's been of interest to you. Do recommend you to go out and have a ride on one if you're in the market for one of these things, and look forward to speaking to you next time. Until then, this has been the Messenden Fly. Cheerio.